Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of In the Pocket Podcast. I am your host, SOU to the P, joined as always by my good brother, Big Mike. What's going on?
Just winning. There's a lot of winning happening. That's
There's a
all.
lot of winning going on in Broncos country.
Absolutely.
A lot of winning going on in Broncos country. And you know what? It's not too bad over here in LA either. It's not too
Yeah,
bad over here in LA either.
that's what I heard.
Yeah, well, it just depends on what side of LA you're on. But that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. Hey, man, the playoffs are starting to take shape, aren't they? I think we're starting to get a better picture of who's going to be in there and who's just going to be on the outside looking in. But I kind of wanted to start today's show with we've got our first coaching casualty of the season. Well, second one, right? Because we had what's his face? Is it Callahan?
Yeah, Brian Callahan with the Titans.
Callahan out of the Titans. He's gone, but now we've reached our second coaching casualty of the season. The New York Giants move off of Brian Daboll following a loss that should have been a win. But what do you expect when Jameis Winston is your quarterback? And here's the thing. I love Jameis. Give him the microphone 24/7. He's always going to give us something from the microphone. And he played well, but it's just like in those clutch moments, he's giving the ball back to the other team or he's missing the throw. And that's exactly what happened. And ultimately, right, it was the straw that broke the camel's back on a season that, you know, they had felt pretty optimistic going into. Brian Daboll was the guy that I had heard was the guy that was kind of orchestrating the charge to get Jackson Dart on the Giants. And I think Jackson Dart is going to be good on the Giants for a long, long time. But I think also you got to question your play calling when you're putting your star quarterback in position to get injured the way that he got hurt. Where he's just constantly throwing his body on the line. Like you have to be able to kind of scheme up some offense that's going to protect your quarterback from himself. And it just seems like man, he likes to run out there. He likes to go head first into the game. And he was just content to let him do that. And now, you know, Dart is hurt, done for the season. Scatterboo's done for the season. And you're stuck with Jameis Winston while Russell Wilson is maybe played his last snap in the NFL. Who knows?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at Jackson Dart getting evaluated, I think, for 4 concussions in his starts or something like that. So that part of that is you got to coach that out, you know, like he's an athletic player, but you're not the biggest. This is the NFL, right? You weren't the biggest in the SEC. You're damn sure not the biggest in the NFL.
For sure.
And they're in a division with the Eagles. They're in a division, they're in a division with the Eagles and then the Commanders. They have some guys coming off the edge. Now the Cowboys, when they, adding Quentin Williams, like he had an absolute game yesterday, etc. Like you have to be able to protect yourself. That extra yard isn't worth the concussion, and potentially shortening your career. So we'll see how Mike Kafka did. There's been positive reviews after his first game last time, or on Sunday rather, but. We'll see kind of how they look going forward and what direction they take next year. They definitely have some holes to fill. I mean, those holes are exasperated when play calling doesn't set you up, but also the injuries that they sustained this year kind of left them in a bad situation as well. So,
yeah, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that Daboll is going to get a job in this next cycle, potentially another head coaching role, or he'll be somewhere in college or he'll be an OC somewhere, but I don't think he's going to be out of the league. So who else do you think is kind of probably the next person that we should be watching? The next one that's, hey, once Black Monday arrives, these are the names that you could expect. Is there 1 or 2 people that kind of come to mind for you?
Stefanski with the Browns comes to mind. It's like they haven't been able to figure out that quarterback situation. Obviously, it was said with Deshaun Watson that came from ownership, that contract, wanting to get him in there, so he gave them a little bit more grace. But Dylan Gabriel has played like one of the 2 worst quarterbacks in the NFL consistently this year as a rookie. Shador Sanders, obviously, I don't know why fans are shocked that like the backup quarterback going into the season 3rd string wasn't getting reps with the starters, but like that's not how it works on a short week. But he'll have a first full week to see how he's preparing, getting with the starters, etc. And my thing would be, if he goes out there and outplays Dylan Gabriel, it's a fair question to ask us fans and ownership group, why wasn't he playing earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Why didn't you know he was ready? And if he's not ready, again, it's not the end of the world. Again, this is going to be his first week with reps with the starters, first full week of the offensive line here in this cadence, etc. So That's a guy I could see. And I don't know what the plan is in Oakland or Las Vegas, whatever, but like
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised seeing Pete Carroll. That team, though, the thing I think that might save him is they're just completely void of talent. Like that team does not have a lot of talent. And they didn't go into this as like, expecting to make the playoffs. I don't think that's what they were professing. Their team, though, they have a couple guys on defense. On that line, they got Max Crosby, who's an absolute animal. But it's very similar to the Bengals situation, right? Where you you have it's similar in the sense that the defense is bad, but they don't have an offense either, right? They have Cash and Genty, but they just are devoid of talent in so many areas. I wonder how patient that ownership group will be with them. I think they may be patient. They've historically been a little bit patient, which I think is smarter than how Al Davis was. But I wouldn't be extremely surprised if in that division where coaching really matters, roster talent really matters, if they decide to move up from him as well.
Yeah, man, I gotta agree with you. I think Kevin Stefanski is at the top of my list of people that, hey, maybe he's the next one out the door. And it's kind of hard. And here's the thing: I'm a Kevin Stefanski fan, but I think we've seen the extent of what he's capable of. And you can argue, well, he hasn't had a quarterback, he hasn't had this, he hasn't had that. I've seen coaches with the same quarterbacks that he's had on his roster do better things. And I've seen coaches that have arguably less talented people and still have more success. And you can argue division or whatever. Like, this is the NFL at the end of the day. So I just think that whatever message Stefanski is preaching, has been preaching up there in Cleveland, I think it's old. I think it's tired. I think it would be probably in their best interest to go in a different kind of direction. And I think Kevin Stefanski would find work also pretty quickly as well. But also, I think if I'm an owner and I'm looking at Kevin Stefanski, you don't want to be in a position where you need a full team reclamation. I don't think he's the guy to lead a full team reclamation. You need to have some pieces in place. If nothing else, you need to have a franchise quarterback in place, and give him at least that to build around. So maybe his hat is in the ring for Tennessee, but we'll see as the situation plays out. As it stands right now, he's still currently employed. But I also want to stay in Ohio, in the state of Ohio, because I think if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm looking at Zach Taylor crazy right now too. And they can say, well, what are you supposed to do with Joe Burrow? Because Joe Burrow has been healthy one season out of his career. One season, and in that season they went to the Super Bowl. And whether you think that that's fair or that's unfair, or he doesn't control all the roster moves and stuff, you can't convince me he's not in those rooms having those conversations. They have an inability to get guys in to keep Joe Burrow upright. They have an inability to create a game plan that takes the pressure off of Joe Burrow from having to stand in there and get absolutely annihilated. And they just refuse to invest in the defense. And when you have a talent like Joe Burrow and you go sign two receivers to some of the biggest wide receiver contracts in NFL history, so you're stuck with those three people arguably for the next 3-4 years. You have to capitalize on that. That's a lot of investment that you've made. You have to be able to bring in young talent. You have to be able to develop young talent. You have to be able to grab free agents and make savvy moves and things of that nature. Every other team is finding a way to do it except for you guys. And it's like the Bengals have one good season and then they're just back to the perpetual seller of the AFC North. I don't understand it. So I definitely think Zach Taylor is on the hot seat. I think my stance on Mike McDaniels has maybe cooled off, especially at how he's got that team rolling the last few weeks with considerably less talent, considering their injuries and the trades that happened before the deadline. So I think he might have saved himself. But I'm also going to stand by you on this one too, man, with the Las Vegas. I think they went into the season with a certain expectation from Pete Carroll, obviously not playoffs and stuff like that, right? But they wanted to be able to see a future with this team and a direction. And I don't think that the Raiders have an identity besides suck. Like, I think that's their identity. And to your point, whether this is fair to Pete or not, it is a very high level coaching division, the AFC West, where you're competing against Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh. Like, you have to be able to match up week in and week out with those guys, and you have to be able to keep pace. And they're just not doing it. They're not doing it. And it's a shame because in a season where I think you do have an opportunity to capitalize and, finish as maybe the 2 or the 3 in this division, and they just can't do anything with it, right? Kansas City is doing whatever Kansas City is doing. You just had the Chargers stumble big against Jacksonville. And nobody could really see what the Broncos were cooking. I mean, this is what you had hoped, assuming that Bo Nix was on the trajectory that he was with his first year. But Bo Nix hasn't played the greatest football of his career this year. He's had a little bit of a sophomore slump, but that team is still finding a way to win games. That comes down to coaching.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit because you mentioned the Bengals situation, and this is something that I wasn't aware of until earlier this week when I was looking, man. Their GM has been their de facto GM since 1999, so he's literally been there. Duke Tobin, player personnel, he makes most of the decisions. That's the issue. That's the issue I think that they're having, right? If it's I know they run a lean thing where Paul Brown and Mike Brown were ownership, GM, etc. But Duke Turbin has been handling all that since the 1999 season. We're going on 30 years. We're at 25 years right now, of 26 years of bad personnel decisions. Right? You have never been able to look at the Bengals and say this is a team that knows how to build a roster. The best case scenario with that was with Marvin Lewis, right? And he had some of those, but he had a better defense, but then offensively. And so I think a thing that they should do as they're continuing to invest in this team is get a GM in there that's the actual GM. Don't leave that to ownership like a Jerry Jones kind of thing. And you have the de facto GM because Mike Brown is their president, owner, CEO, GM, but their Duke Tobin is the one that's supposed to be handling all that stuff. And he's been doing that for so long, man. I feel like they're doing this thing where hey, the coach wants this kind of thing, and we're working with the coach to make these things happen. And every coach isn't a personnel. Personnel isn't every coach's strength. There's not very many coaches that can be a GM at the same time as being a coach. So I think what would be fair of them is because reality is Zach Taylor is one of the most bright minds in football right now in the NFL. I don't think you're going to upgrade at a head coaching position from him. But what I think you can do is remove that responsibility from him if he is involved in some of those personnel things. Take that away from him. Hire, invest more in your staff. They literally have the leanest scouting department in the NFL. They have the leanest executive group in the NFL. And unfortunately, that's showing up on the field because you have Lou Anarumo, who was their defensive coordinator last year, go to the Colts and have the Colts defense looking completely different. It wasn't a Lou Anarumo problem. It's a personnel problem. And I really think the biggest mistake that they've made in the last few years was re-signing Higgins instead of investing that money on their defense. They could have, went after a few more pieces. I think that would have helped them get over the hump. And they really got to take care of their line. They got to take care of their offensive line. They got to take care of their defense. You're not going to – they were trying to do something that has never been done in NFL history, which is have a bad line, a good running back, a good quarterback, 2 good receivers, and no defense and make it to the Super Bowl. You can't do that. We saw last year you can't outscore teams on the way to the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl. They literally missed the playoffs last year because they had one of the worst defenses in NFL history, and their defense is as bad this year as it was last year. If not worse. So I think that would be, if I was an advisor for the Bengals, that would be the route I went is, hey, we got to actually invest some personnel in our scouting department or some money and personnel in our scouting department. A real GM, right? There's a lot of brilliant GMs, and I'm not saying Duke Tobin can't be that, but they got to let him actually be the GM, remove some of that from the coach, right? And build the team the way you need to build it, because you don't got to be watching football for very long to understand you have to build your O-line. You have to build your front seven on defense. Places that you can scan by is receiver a little bit, right? Realistically, you can scan by. You have one good receiver, and you can draft a couple guys, a couple free agents. The Broncos are doing that right now, right? We have Cortland Sutton as a receiver, really, and then everybody else besides Marvin Mims, and he's more of a kick returner for us.
Somebody go name me who the receiving core for the New England Patriots is outside of Stephon Diggs.
Exactly, and they've lost 2 games this year, right? So that in the Bills, same thing, right? The Buffalo Bills have shown the same thing. You look at these 2 teams, the Dolphins, right, and the Bengals have put a lot of money into their receiver position, and they're lacking on their offensive line and their defense. You can't pay everybody, and I think it's a little bit smarter if teams want to pay that receiver, trade that for some draft capital, some personnel capital, and invest in that defense and the offensive line, because Tua and Joe Burrow can't get the ball to their receivers if they're hurt, right? So I do think that is something that they really have to look at this offseason, man. And I wouldn't, and again, with both those coaches, I think those are two good coaches. I just think that, like, they're not the coaches that you need to be the coaches / GMs. They haven't shown to be able to do that, especially with their first head coaching jobs. They got to get a little bit tougher on those at those situations, in my opinion. So
I agree on that, and I would also say that, you know, if you are, let's say that you are going to retain Zach Taylor, I think there needs to be an argument that you have to find a way to get rid of either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. And I'm telling you right now, you're not going to get rid of Jamar Chase. You have to find a team that's willing to take on T. Higgins' contract and get you some capital and stuff, and try to get those pieces and stuff back, because the way that your team is constructed right now, do you understand that Joe Burrow is on pace to play within his new contract? He's on pace to play fewer games than Tua. It's absolutely unacceptable. Like, at a certain point, right, coaches, if you've been around sports for any amount of time, right, at a certain amount of time, like a certain point in time, the best ability becomes availability. I don't care how talented you are. If I can't have you on the field on Sundays, that talent equals nothing. It equals nothing, because it's just for show and it's just for Madden. And Madden doesn't help anybody hoist any kind of championships. So, like I said, I definitely think there's probably going to be some surprise firing, some stuff that, you know, maybe we don't agree with when it goes down on Black Monday, or, you know, there's still a lot of football to be played between now and Black Monday. So I'm sure there are people that are going to be campaigning for their exits, and we'll make sure to cover all of that stuff. But I wanted to talk about this incident that happened pretty early in the Cincinnati and Steelers game. Now, we know, right, that's a division game. You can call it a rivalry. I'm not calling it a rivalry when one team is beating you with his hand behind his back for the last, what feels like a century. But Jalen Ramsey, Jamar Chase. Jalen Ramsey gets ejected pretty early in the second quarter after he throws a punch at Jamar Chase. When asked after the game, Jalen Ramsey said, "Oh, the reason I threw the punch at him is because he spit on me." Jamar Chase, in his post game, says, "I don't know what you're talking about. I ain't never done that." We went to the video review, and that determined that was a lie, that he spit all over that man. What I thought was pretty great commentary from Mike Tomlin today at the podium. He was asked, "Hey, what kind of advice? What do you say to a player like Jalen Ramsey in that moment when those incidents happen?" He's like, "There ain't nothing to say." He said, "A man spits on you. Do what you feel comes natural."
Yeah, I don't know what the NFL has going on this year where that's becoming a thing. Jordan Davis. Like, I think this is the third or fourth incidents this season. Like, that shit is completely disrespectful. That's the only way to put it. And and here's the reality: you're not going to be fighting on a football field. You got a helmet on, all this other stuff, right? Yeah,
no, it's up.
It means he threw a punch or whatever, but like, you got a helmet on, he's fully protected, he's in football pads to be able to withstand hits from linebackers. Like, a punch isn't going to do anything. But I also understand that retaliation. So Jalen Ramsey will be back, Jamar Chase will be out. And again, this is putting them in that situation where, they open up Joe Burrow's window to come play, and maybe you want to knock a little bit of the rust off. But I would invest. The team needs to be able to protect him, and they can't. And Joe Flacco right now is playing as well as you can expect a quarterback to play behind that line. So I would say, hey, Jamar Chase not being there is not going to help them win. I think T. Higgins will absolutely go off on Sunday because, when Jamar Chase isn't playing, he absolutely goes bananas, and that's, as a receiver. But saying all that to say, man, like, that shit has to get out the game, man. We cannot be having people spitting on people, because if somebody walks up to your job at you and spit in your face, I don't care. It's up. Like, as a grown man or a woman or whoever you are, right? Like, that's not acceptable in any facet, and I wouldn't expect somebody to spit in my face and expect to walk away with no consequences. Like, I can't be Jalen Ramsey, etc. for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear any of that coach speak saying, "Oh, well, you can't do that. You can't retaliate because the team." Like, bro, this is not about. At that point, when you get spit on, it's not about football anymore. Like, and sorry, this is the regular season. They're not competing in the playoffs. They're not trying to go to the Super Bowl. Like it's a game. It's probably one that they got in hand anyway. And by the way, even if it is a Super Bowl, yeah, you would like to be more conscious of that. But I'm sorry that, like you said, that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful on another level. Like to have another human being spit on you. Some of you guys are probably not old enough to remember a little show called Flavor of Love. But one of the most iconic moments from that is watching one of the females spit on another one, and it was up on that too. So I can't blame Jalen for reacting the way that he has, and I don't know why you would want to play Jalen anyway. Like he's already demonstrated throughout the history of his career that he's willing to go with anybody. Definitely if you're gonna spit on him. But I agree, man. We got to get that out the game. Like they're over here doing taunting rules and all sorts of stuff. Like I definitely think spitting on another player, we need a more severe consequence because the consequence, I know people are like, oh, the game's already soft. It says, no, there needs to be real consequences for spitting on another human being because they need to understand, like, we're not going to tolerate that. If especially in a league that promotes quote unquote sportsmanship and things of that nature, that has to be something that you have to make an example out of these people. And a 1-game suspension isn't going to do it. Now, don't get me wrong. I saw how much money that Jamar Chase was going to miss out on his game check, and I fell to my knees.
Yeah, but he's wealthy already though. So like,
I get it, but I fell to my knees. I was like, you can't. The fact that he can miss that much money and not bat an eyelash, brother. When I tell you, I was drowning in my own tears. It wasn't a good feeling.
How much was his game check? I don't know if I saw that.
It's about half. It's about what did he say? It was like 552,000, about half a mil.
Yeah, bro. Like, yeah, they ain't nothing. There's not much. There's not much somebody could do to cost me $500,000, brother.
Yeah, that's why like $500,000. I was like, man, it must be nice to just walk away from that. But something else that I wanted to talk to you about that's unrelated to people getting spit on and whatnot. There's a situation that has quietly been brewing that I don't think is getting enough attention, but it's got my attention. Why? Because it's in my division. The benching of Kyler Murray, because he's healthy now. But Gannon has made the decision to go ahead with Jacoby Brissett the rest of the way, it seems. What do you make of Kyler Murray in Arizona? Has he potentially played his last snap for Arizona?
I just, that's another franchise, man, where like, I think it takes a special offensive mind to work with the quarterback like a Kyler Murray, a Lamar Jackson, et cetera, these scrambling guys that can pass. Like now, keep in mind, Lamar Jackson is one of the best passers in the NFL top 5. Like I'm not talking about top 5 quarterbacks because he is a top 5 quarterback, but because of what he can do with his legs, teams have to play him differently, and he takes advantage of that passing. We saw that all the way back to when he was at Louisville tearing up the U as a U fan. So I'm not comparing, Kyler to Lamar in that sense, right? But you can compare Kyler to Lamar when it comes to both of them when they're on the ground running. It's a mismatch for the defense, right? So I think it takes a special mind for that, and I don't think Jonathan Gannon, his staff, his philosophy really rolls that kind of quarterback style. The reality is they just paid him last year, so it's not like that'd be a way bigger hit than
was it last year? I think it's 2 years now.
Either way, it'd be bigger at this point. Let me look and see than what Russ's was, but I do think it makes. Yeah, he signed it in. Yeah, he signed it in 22, into 22. So he has 3 more years in this deal. He has about 103 million that's guaranteed left. So saying that to say, man, I don't think you can get off of him that easily. And Brisker hasn't been shown to be a starting quarterback, and since he's a good, I'll fill in. He's making their offense work pretty well, for what it is right now. But if that's your choices is him or Kyler, I will go with Kyler long term. But you got to figure something out to get him rolling, man. Like that's the coach's job. I think Mike Tomlin he said this several times, and he's shown it throughout his history. It's a coach's job to coach. He loves players that other teams say, oh, this player is this, and that. Like they see the traits. A lot of times you see the coach is not coaching these players up. And again, Gannon is a defensive mind. I'm aware of that. But it's his responsibility as a head coach. And he's got that team in a better situation they were before he got there, unquestionably. I don't think anybody could argue that with or without.
The record isn't reflecting that.
I mean, how that team has been playing since he's been there. He's not a coach that's on the anybody saying is on the hot seat or whatever. They've been able to be competitive in games, etc. He just has to figure out the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. And if it is a thing like everybody jokes about, Call of Duty drop in, and Kyler Murray, if it's something like that, then you do have to move off of that guy and do what you got to do. And that's something they got to figure out. Ownership, again, that's another cheap ownership group, right? That's another ownership group that's very cheap when it comes to personnel. They were charging their players for their own lunches at one point, right? So
yeah,
I have a hard time believing they're going to move off that contract. But if for the rest of this season, he's like, hey, I just want to see what he can do. Let Kyler maybe learn. I don't know, but that's not a contract they can get off of that easy with that ownership group. That would be like the Bengals. Not saying I'm comparing Kyler Murray to Joe Burrow because I'm not, but contractually, it'd be like the Bengals cheap asses coming off of Joe Burrow when they just signed him a few years ago. And that ownership group is about as cheap as the Bengals ownership group. They're a little bit less cheap, but they're in that same, classification. So,
yeah. In kind of some tragic news, because we've been away, we missed John for a second, but in some tragic news, right? Last night, the Dallas Cowboys absolutely decimate the Las Vegas Raiders to nobody's surprise. But they had the chance to honor the late Marshawn Nealon, young man that it appears by all accounts took his own life. And it's such a strange situation, man, where things are trending up in his life, right? Like relatively high draft pick. He's with the Cowboys.
Came off the best game of his career.
Coming off the best game of his career. It's the last thing that I think anybody expected from him, because obviously there were no signs. And unfortunately, that as the days go on, man, that seems to be a recurring theme with a lot of these high profile individuals, is that there are zero indications that there's anything going wrong in their life. And that outwardly, right, they all happen to be somewhere right around the peaks of their careers, or like pivotal moments in their careers, which could be considered high points. And it just seems like they're feeling at their personal lowest. So, first of all, our condolences to his family, and not just his family, but to all the people that came into contact with him and that loved him and that are connected with him in some way, shape, or form. Our condolences to the Cowboys organization and stuff like that. If you've never been a part of a sports locker room, and I don't care what level, if you've never been part of a sports locker room, you can't understand the bond that is in that locker room. Like those men are hurting. It's not just a teammate. It's not a coworker that they clocked in and clocked out with. Like you really form some familial ties right there. It is almost akin to losing one of your family members. So I imagine since that news, it's been very hard for them to strap up and go to work day to day. But at the end of the day, right, like this is a business. They do have, a season that they're stuck in the middle of, and the division that they're trying to compete in, and ultimately go win a Super Bowl and things of that nature. It sucks. And you kind of have to admire a performance of that they put on last night. Given the adversity that they're going on in that locker room. And, we can say, hey, it's the Raiders. Of course, they should have done that. But, man, when you've got that emotional, turmoil brewing inside, anything is bound to happen. So it looks like, their coaches got their heads on straight, and they're focused on the right things. They're focused on moving forward. So
it's insane that you mentioned that camaraderie in the locker room, because if you think about it, when you were saying that, bro, like we met going into our 9th grade year of high school. So coming out of 8th grade, going into 9th grade year of football, and we've been brothers ever since. And that was like, what, 20-something years ago, 20-some-odd years ago?
2007, brother.
No, we graduated in 2007.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Well,
so
2003. 2003.
Yeah, so like 22 years, meaning you've had like this friendship, brothership. It's weird, my brother. Like my kids call you uncle, your kids call me uncle, etc. So there is bonds that are formed in locker rooms. NFL college locker rooms are completely different than a high school locker room.
Sure.
So that team being able to get up, dedicate that game to him. Luckily they did have a bye after that happened. That situation did happen, so they could get the team from reporting. They did have like some grief counselors, etc. there for the players, and they could take a little bit more time to process. But definitely shout out that Cowboys organization, which you won't hear us say most of the time, right? But absolutely to his family and friends, everybody that he's impacted, thoughts and prayers of y'all. And I'm giving Jerry Jones a shout out for investing in his players. That's something that nobody has ever argued with him against, and he has made sure that they have the help that they need as they're going through that transition, and especially that defensive line room, right? Like that's really, it's not just the defense, but that defensive line room. You're in position groups, you're with them, really more than you're with your family at that point. So for all those guys, definitely, shout out to them, and I hope that they can continue to have a successful season, picking up off this Raiders game for them and come together in memory of him and lose before they get to the playoffs, because that's not going to happen. So
yeah. Well, before we transition out of that, I just want to say this is a reminder to anybody out there that's listening. Like, number one, check on your people, even the people that you think are doing great in life, that maybe you feel are in a better position than you are in life. Check on your folks, because you never truly know what's going on. And then, hey, if you or someone that is struggling with mental health, find some help. Like, talk to somebody, get a professional, like go seek the therapy. This isn't the 1990s, 1980s anymore, especially young men. Like, take care of your mental health, and do what you need to do, and block out all the outside noise about whatever negative stigmas there may be around that, because some of the most successful people that we've seen in our lifetime have decided that being here is no longer worth it, and they have lives that arguably people would kill for. So if they have all of that and it's still not enough, I can't imagine what the average everyday person is going through. So again, seek help, lean on your people, check on your people.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, back to football now. So we talked about the playoffs taking shape, and I tend to try to stray away from talking about my favorite team, because you and I, Mike, we have a duty, we have an obligation, we're committed to talking about the entire football league. However, right, there is clearly some bias, there's clearly some prejudice, and yes, there's only one jersey that touches his body on Sundays, and any day. It's a Los Angeles Rams or St. Louis Rams jersey. But I intentionally try to avoid talking about them, because I don't want to turn this into the Rams Broncos show. However, we get to talk about them today, because they are sitting, I think, respectively in the driver's seat. Outside of the Rams are in second place because of the loss earlier to Philadelphia, but they're still like very much in a position where we could be looking at the number one seeds in the AFC and the NFC. Let's talk about your Broncos first, man, because in spite of, uninspired quarterback play from your sophomore quarterback, that defense is absolutely humming. And even though Bo Nix isn't having the season that we envisioned for him, he's making the plays when they matter.
Yeah, no, the Broncos have, so last year I want to say we were like 1-something in one-score games, and this year it's I want to say it's like we're 9-2 right now, so I want to say we're like 8-2 or something like that this year. Like, we won one game, the Cowboys game, I believe, was the only game it was just really a dragon. Almost every other score has been a one-score game. We lost the two games we lost by a combined 4 points, right? So we lost those two games by a total of 4 points. So Bo Nix, it's I don't know. Sean Payton, I know, likes to control the narrative and all that stuff. But saying that to say, Bo Nix, when it comes to the fourth quarter, he's a baller, right? And I think it's because of play calling, the tempo, etc. And if that's something that we have to do in the first three quarters to get our team rolling, it's something that we should do, because you get to the playoffs, you get down to a Buffalo Bills, who else we got? Oh, the Colts, like how the Colts are playing right now.
New England's going to be tough.
New England's going to be a tough team to play. If you can't go to the playoffs and get down by 10, 15 points and expect a miraculous fourth quarter comeback. So I am glad we're learning how to win close games now, as the first time since Cortland Sutton, Garrett Bowles has been there, that we've been able to be doing that. And I'm extremely happy about it. But like, they got to pull the reins off of Bo Nix a little bit, especially now that J.K. Dobbins is out for the rest of the season. He's a player that I hope the Broncos absolutely bring back next year. That changed what our offense looked like. Javonte Williams, I wanted us to bring back, that coming out the ACL, but like J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, that's a phenomenal 1-2 punch. So, but he's out for the rest of the year, and we got the Commanders coming up. We're gonna have the Chiefs again. We got the Chargers one more time. We have a little bit of a schedule to go through. So I'm very happy with the progression that the Broncos have made. And at this point, again, like I told you, the Broncos could win 11, 12 games at the beginning of the season, be in contention for the AFC, and really,
we're right there.
The Broncos are about to be at that right now. We have a real argument. As people are like, you're being a homer. We have a real argument to be in 11-0. We're the first team in NFL history to lose 2 games that we did not show in the fourth quarter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like we lost as time expired. 2 games we have a chance to have been 11-0. I'm glad we lost those 2 games because that taught the team, hey, there's some stuff we need to fix and we need to work on. But I'm very happy with how our defense is playing. And just going back, we're missing 2 of the most pivotal pieces on our defense. And Pat Surtain, that's the best player on defense in the NFL, in my opinion. He won the Defensive Player of the Year last year. I think he's given up like 2 catches this year. He's been out, right? And we've been 1-1. Or no, we won both games since he's been out. And then Alex Singleton, our leading tackler since he's been with the Broncos, they did a urine test for like testosterone, like performance, the drug test or whatever. They do their random test after he had like 12 tackles, and they found out that he had testicular cancer. So they cut that out, and he's been gone for 2 weeks since that happened as well. He played the next game. He's gone this week. He'll be back after the bye. But we're missing the 2 best defensive players, and our defense is still playing like they're supposed to be playing. We have a bye, and both those players are supposed to come back after the bye. So for us to be able to find a way to win missing those players, we need more out of our offense for sure. R.J. Harvey, I hope he recharges this week because we're going to definitely need him and Jaleel McLaughlin going forward. But the Broncos have been stressing me out and making me very happy this year. And I know the Rams have been doing the same thing for you, man. You look at that Rams team. We looked at Puka Nacua going into the year. We said this is the kind of year he's going to have. Devontae Adams, he's been the touchdown scorer. That man has – I thought he was going to be more of the possession and Puka would be scoring, and that's kind of been reversed. But your Rams team has seemed to be putting it together, building off that momentum from last year. What do you think about how you guys this season can end out?
Well, look, man, it's different than the last 2 seasons, right? Because this is the first time that we've been above 500 in the last 2 years at this point in the season. Normally, this is right around the time that we're starting to make a resurgence and get back to 500 and then, pretty much run the table into the thing. So it's kind of nice playing from the front. And similar to what you were saying with the Broncos, right? This team has a real opportunity to be 10-0 right now. Like, if they can block and hold up, Cardi makes a field goal against the Eagles, that's a win. And if Cardi doesn't miss the 2 field goals and then get a third one blocked against San Francisco, we win that game as well. So you guys will notice that Josh Carter is not kicking for the Rams anymore. Here's what surprising me about this Rams team, man. It is the play of Matthew Stafford this year. Man is 37 years old, and it's not that I've ever doubted that Matthew Stafford is a good football player, but I would argue he's probably having the best season of his entire career, and that includes the Megatron years as well. Like, the way that he's taking care of the ball, reading the field, controlling the offense, right, and putting the ball in spaces where only his receivers can get it, like, it's some of the best play that I've seen from him. And I really think that this team, for the first time in a while, is learning how to play complementary football. You have a super, super aggressive defensive front that, I can't even begin to call all of the names up there. But even more impressive than that defensive front has been what Chris Shula has done on the back end with that secondary. It's a bunch of what you would say no-name talent, unless you're a Rams fan, but they have been playing extremely well. You have Seattle come into your house. One of the most, if not the most explosive offense in the NFL this season. Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is on pace to break all sorts of records. There has not been a team that's been able to tie him down. Right. And Emmanuel Forbes, cast off from the Commanders, picked up off of waivers last year, had a little bit of a rocky start this year. Over the last few games, has really started to round into form and be that first-round pick that the Commanders drafted him as. I'm just glad that he's doing it in a Rams uniform. he strapped up JSN. JSN held to 0 touchdowns on the day. I think he was under 50 yards receiving. It was not a big day for him. But then you take that collective group of quote unquote no name secondary guys, and you walk away with 4 interceptions on Sam Darnold. Now, shout out to my co-host Mike and his boys over at the U. Apparently, they know how to produce DBs. The man Cam Kitchens, let me tell you something. This is his 2nd year in the league, and this is his what I believe his 4th or 5th interception on the Seattle Seahawks. There's something about the Seahawks that just gets him going. He loves intercepting whatever quarterback that they got back there. Last year it was Geno. This year is Sam Darnold. He got us going with the first interception. Then you had he ended up picking up a 2nd interception as well. Darius Williams gets in on the action and grabs an interception. Kobe Durant with the 2nd interception as well. Like, by the way, these aren't the biggest guys outside of Emmanuel Forbes. Like, these are not the biggest guys that you've ever seen in your life. They're all tiny guys, but
Cam Kitchens is 5'10", I believe, 5'11". So
yeah, and Darius Williams is probably like right there with him. But I'm just really excited about what they've been doing. You've seen McVay return to the play calling that he had in the 2018 season, where there was a lot of motion, but not just motion, a lot of stuff off the play action in the boot and things that when Matthew Stafford came to the Rams, this is what I thought that we were going to do. I thought we were going to take all the stuff that was working well with Jared Goff, put a more efficient quarterback behind that line and run the same stuff. And that's not what we did. But now you see, it looks like Matt has, become a lot more comfortable in that system. He really controls the play calling and things of that nature on the field. And they're protecting him. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks out of play action. They're running some 13 personnel. And my God, I love to see tight ends on the field, and like actual tight ends, not receivers being treated like tight ends. Tyler Higbee's having a great year. Davis Allen, I think, has made a tremendous jump since being drafted, I think, in the 6th round a few years ago. Kobe Parkinson, who we acquired from the Seahawks, he hasn't had like the most spectacular year, but he's come up clutch in a few big plays. And then we've seen spurts of Terrence Ferguson, the 2nd round pick out of Oregon, the Rams' 1st draft pick from this previous draft. We've seen flashes of what he could be. And man, if this guy learns to put that together in a consistent basis with McVay finding a way to scheme him open and get him those favorable matchups, you're talking about what's probably going to go down as a top 5 tight end in the league once he gets his legs up under him. So just really impressed with the effort that these guys have been doing. We re-signed Kyron Williams over the offseason, and he's had some ball control issues, understandably, right? Like, he fumbles the ball in San Francisco on the 1, which would have also won us that game. But, to his credit, he's gotten better and better and better. Blake Corum is finding his legs underneath him. You're getting a lot of these offensive pieces involved. And the offensive line has been holding up well. Alaric Jackson, who got paid and had to deal with blood clots in the offseason, but has come back and has been one of the best left tackles in football this season. Since Steve Avila's come back from his injury, he's been one of the better interior guards of the offseason. Coleman Shelton hasn't been the best center, but you know what? His ability to recognize defensive movements and blitzes and be able to get the offensive line adjusted properly has been key and critical. And you love what Kevin Dotson has brought to this team ever since we acquired him from the Steelers, with Rob Havenstein, right? One of the last St. Louis Rams on this team since we just signed Jake McQuaid back last week. He's now the only other St. Louis Ram on this team. But yeah, this is a team that's shown, hey, they can win all kinds of ways. They can get at you defensively, get the turnovers. They can score quick. They can score big. This is the first time, and I think in 3 weeks, that we haven't hit 40 points mark. So it's probably the most complete team that we've seen from the Rams. And the biggest thing with them is they are the least penalized team in the NFL. They're just a clean organization from top to bottom. And I think they have a real chance this year to take this thing pretty far. I think it's still a little bit too early to talk Super Bowl and stuff like that, even though, my heart is screaming at it. My heart is screaming and we want to talk about it. But I think the Rams have shown themselves as a team that should be respected. Now, they still have a gauntlet of teams to go through, including, 2 matchups with Arizona, another showdown with Seattle. We've got the Buccaneers coming to SoFi this week. It doesn't get easier for them. But I love that this team is battle tested and that they're coming together and playing the way that they've been playing. So
I love how you call the Cardinals a test when you hate the Cardinals that much. Y'all usually do your thing, but division games are different. We know how that can play out. Like the Raiders made us. The Raiders look like the purple people eaters when we played them. So then they got blown out by the Cowboys. So division games are definitely a little bit different.
Yeah, man. But outside of our two teams, because we spent the last few minutes talking about that, I wanted to talk a little bit about just some of the more bizarre things that are going on around the league in terms of performances and things like that. The Bills, I don't know who they are. They're so up and down. They lose to teams that they ain't got no business losing to, and then they turn around and blow out another team, or they'll be competitive with the Buccaneers like they were on Sunday, and then at the same time, you have a very up and down team in the Atlanta Falcons, right? Who 1 week looked fantastic. The next week, the Panthers are destroying them. So much to the fact that the Panthers swept them this year. And I don't know if there was a world, Mike, where in the offseason when we started the show, I could envision the Panthers above 500 and the Falcons below 500 this year at this point in the year.
Yeah, no, and if you look at our predictions, man, neither one of us had the Panthers.
I think we had them last.
Yeah, we had them last in that division, and
last year,
we had them second to last because of the Saints. I think we had the Saints in them, but like saying that to say, man, they've hit and I've been a Bryce Young fan. I really do believe he's
past Cam Newton's franchise record,
which is absolutely bananas, right?
Insane.
To absolutely say, but I think he was always somebody that if he had the weapons, the line, the protection, that he could get the ball where he needed to be a very good distributor of the ball, and that hasn't changed. But like, just feel bad for the Falcons. I know you're never happy about an injury, but I know you're happy about the track that they're on because y'all own their first round draft pick. But like Michael Penix being out for the season and having you talked about it earlier, one of the two foremost bag getters in NFL history.
Yes.
Sarah Bradford and Kirk Cousins, Kurt Cobain's, right? Kirk Cochains.
Yep, Kirk Cochains.
Going to be starting for the rest of it. He does not care because he could throw an interception every time he drops back, and he's still getting his money. And that team, man, I just they've got hit with injuries at some wrong times. I think they have a little bit of reformulating to do for their offense before they can take another step. But Michael Penix, man, like he has been hurt 5 of the last 8 years in general, like college football to now. He was in the college for 6 years. This is his second year in the league. He's been hurt at some point both years, right? So we definitely want to, he has to be able to protect himself as well, right? And they have to be able to scheme some of that up if he can't do that. But in order for them to get to where they need to be, they have to have him there. Kirk Cousins has shown he's not the answer anywhere. Bijan Robinson has shown that he's one of the most explosive running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, when you utilize him, imagine that.
When you utilize him, and Drake London, although I've never been a big Drake London fan, they're figured out how to use him, right? They're using him in a way. I think they thought he could have been what Ted McMillan is for the Panthers, and that's a guy that I was like, I don't know him coming out either, but they're using him the proper way. I think Drake London, they would have wanted to use more like that, but he's making plays when it counts as well. So again, this could be one of them seasons where I don't see them making the playoffs at this point, right? Their defense is starting to round into form, get them a little bit better than going into offseason, get them healthy, add a couple pieces on the O-line, another receiver, and I think they'll be in good shape. And I think they got it in. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think they got it in that Kyle Pitts experiment. It just hasn't worked since his rookie year. He had the best season of his career as a rookie. And unless you have a historic rookie year, which he didn't even have 1,000 yards then, that's never a stat you want to have, right? So I just think they had to move on from that, get another tight end in there, right? A blocking tight end or dual threat tight end. He's really, like we talked about earlier, a receiver pretending to be a tight end. They don't even use him all the way they can. So I just think, man, they have a little bit of retooling to do, but I do think they have the leadership in place to kind of move forward. But you're 100% right. I know they probably thought I just wanted to rant, but I didn't. It's just crazy to think about. The Falcons was the team when you look at that division that could compete with the Bucks potentially, right? The Bucks have been the class of that division, but you're like, man, the Falcons with what they did, if they hit them those 2 first-round picks, and they felt so good about those 2 players that they traded next year's pick, and right now it's on track to be a top 10 pick in a draft that they really need some pieces. So again, that kind of sucks for them, but at the same time, like, shout out to the Panthers, man, because nobody expected them to be doing what
nobody expected them to do that. Mike, you know what the only thing better than the Super Bowl is?
What?
winning the Super Bowl and having a top 5 pick after that.
That would be true.
So that's what I'm crossing my fingers for. Sorry, I just played my hand. I just revealed what I really, really want to happen. And if it shakes out that way, good. The Jaguars, bro. I got to talk about this game before we close it out today. What in the world happened to the Chargers?
They've had it's a great question. I feel like the last time we saw these two teams play, I believe it was in the playoffs.
It was in the playoffs.
And Trevor Lawrence ended up having a terrible game, but they came back and won, right? So I think they just have their numbers. There's sometimes where a team just has your number, and it feels like that. But also, I can say with the Chargers, man, like losing Joe Alt, Rashard Slater for the year, big damn deal for that team because their team is they're built the right way. Their team is built around their offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know though because they had the every opportunity to win that game, and they let that slip out of their fingers, man. But like, I don't know what it is with the Jags, but they're going to be like the Packers pretty soon with the Bears. Talk about we own them, etc. But they definitely have put them in a position where the Chargers were in position to technically run away with the AFC West until some of these out of division losses and some of these injuries they have. So I don't know what it is, man. It's Justin Herbert is not as clutch as people say, and I will die on that hill until he proves me wrong. He's a talented QB, but he is not clutch, man. Like I don't believe he is a clutch quarterback. I would rather have Bo Nix in his fourth quarter playmaking than Justin Herbert throwing interceptions in the fourth quarter when you need him to get a first down. So, yeah, man, I'm not a big believer in him, but I'm a believer in that coach.
Listen, man, I hear what you say about the injuries and things of that nature, and we can make excuses, explanations, whatever you guys want to call it, right? But I'm definitely not a Charger apologist, and I won't start being one right now. You just have to win that game. You have to win that game because it's not like the Jaguars are just overflowing with talent either, right? Travis Hunter going on season-ending IR as well. And then when you look at just a week prior, right, they played the Steelers. And they beat the Steelers. I'm talking about the Chargers beat the Steelers 25-10. I don't think anybody in their right mind would argue that Jacksonville has a more prolific defense than the Steelers.
I think at this point, they played better this year, though.
Sure, maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying that the Chargers can't lose against Jacksonville. I'm saying you can't get your doors blown off of you 35-6.
That's fair.
I'm sure that Harbaugh went to sleep that night wondering what the fuck happened.
There's no way he did it, man. Like that's just one of those games they let get away, man. I don't know. One last team I did want to touch base on because me and you.
I want to see if you're in sync.
I guarantee we're in sync. Me and you talked about this team in the offseason as a team that had the potential to make a big jump with their coach, etc. And they are now leading the NFC North, the Chicago Bears, man. Like the season that they've been putting together, Caleb Williams, and everybody's talking about how much of a hard ass the head coach is. Caleb Williams with his painted nails. That shit seems to have worked out, man. They got that team together. They're running the ball well. They're playing much better defense than last year. Their offenses have been able to score. And they don't even have the full pieces that they want to have, but their line is much improved. They literally show what happens when you put time in your line, your offensive and your defensive line. You give your quarterback some time to get stuff off, and he's was having a little bit of tough time buying into their offense last year. That is not the case this year, but was that the team that you were thinking too?
That's exactly who I was talking about. The Bears is because here's the thing: they're winning close games. They're finding ways to win, and it's always at the 11th hour. Which some people will say it's luck. Listen, this is sports, professional sports. There's always a little bit of an element of luck to it, right? But I'd rather be lucky than good any day. Like Ben Johnson has that team moving in the right direction. And here's the scariest part about the Bears is they are not even maximizing the talent that is on that roster. There is still so much to be extracted from that. We have yet to see the best ball from Colston Loveland. We've yet to see the best ball from DJ Moore. We've yet to see the best ball from Cole Kmet, from Roma Dunze, who has by all means underwhelmed in his NFL tenure so far. Like, imagine what happens if Ben Johnson finds a way to have those guys hit their potential. That's an explosive offense. And you mix that with a defense that has been playing really, really hungry right now. Like, I got to say, man, I knew it was a possibility, but there was no logical path for me to say, hey, the Bears are going to be in control of the AFC North. So, not the AFC, the NFC North. One last thing before I sign off is I just want to say this because it feels, I know we still got a few more weeks before they can officially like close it out and own it. But I just want to say they called me a madman when I said that the Patriots would win their division this season.
I called you a madman.
They called me a madman. Now look. Now, hey, it's not over yet. There's still time for me to be wrong. But it's looking pretty favorable for your boy right now.
Yeah, brother. Like the Patriots. And so Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson, in my opinion, are the only two coaches in the running for Coach of the Year this year.
I got to give it to Shanahan. I got to put him in the running too because what he's been doing with that roster being what it is.
They have injuries perpetually because of how they play, so I can't give him credit for the position that team is always in that he puts them in because of how they play. So with that being said, if I was a voter, Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, clearly the class of that conversation this year.
All right, man. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, man. Stop spitting on people. This is football. Motherfucker, this ain't no kink Pornhub shit that y'all know what y'all got going on, brother. Like, keep that in your mouth or your wife's mouth. Don't be spitting on other NFL players. That's what I wanted. That's the message I want to end with this week.
That's out of pocket. In a less out of pocket statement, Matthew Stafford is far and away the MVP in the NFL this year, and I'm not entertaining any other conversations for anything else or anybody else. Drake May's having a fantastic season. He's not Matthew Stafford. He's got the numbers and he's got the wins to back it up. I don't want to hear it. Stop disrespecting my quarterback. He's really him. Appreciate you guys for joining us for another episode of In the Pocket. In the Pocket podcast drops every single Wednesday when we're on our stuff right here on YouTube. So please go ahead and hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so that way you'll know when those new episodes are up and posted. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.